Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Be More podcast, where we inspire you to be more of every role within the Salesforce ecosystem and beyond. For today's session, we are exploring what it takes to be an architect for Be More Architect. And I'm joined today by Lilith. So if you could start by introducing yourself for our audience, please.
I would happily do so. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Lilith Van Biesen. I'm Principal Architect Evangelist at Salesforce. I live in Belgium. I have been part of the Salesforce ecosystem for 8 years now. Started as consultant, grew into architect, and eventually into a CTA. I love the community, so I'm so happy that you asked me to talk about this. And happy to explain all things architect anytime, any day. You know where to find me.
All right, awesome. Well, I love that. And I love the sound of your role, Principal Architect Evangelist. Can you explain to our audience what that means in reality?
Yes, so I will start by explaining architect a bit, and then I'll tie it into what an architect evangelist does. An architect is somebody who, well, just like you would with a house, right? You need somebody to create those blueprints, to create those designs. They take all the requirements and then they try to write out something that will actually make technical sense and that is buildable, making sure you have those load bearing systems in this case and so forth. So an architect is, in another metaphor, because I love those, the bridge. You have on the one side, you have the business vision, which we know can sometimes be a bit ambitious or, ambitious, I
Yeah.
think is the best word, really. And then on the other hand, on the other side of the bridge, we have the technical reality, the technical stakeholders who will help actually maybe bring a bit of the sense of what we can actually do, pragmatism versus dreaming, and just making sure that overall, the solution is sound. As an architect, you're in between those. So you need to make sure you understand what does business want, what is the process that they're trying to get support for or find a solution for,
Hmm.
while still keeping in mind all the technical details, let's say, on how to make sure that you build this in a way that is going to be scalable, is going to be stable, is going to be trusted by the business, going to be used. Very important, just don't create something just because you can. It needs to be used as well. And that's kind of what an architect does. Then bring it to an evangelist and sticking to this bridge metaphor. So now, rather than balancing business and technical stakeholders, I'm trying to balance, Salesforce and all the incredible information and knowledge that we have there, all the incredible expertise that is there with the architect community, with all the architects that are out there, either with, our partners, our customers, or within Salesforce itself, because there's tons of architects there too, and making sure that there's the right information going through, that their communication is happening there, because we often hear a lot of things from the community about things that are needed, whether it's resources or features. And we want to see how we can bring that because yeah, I think one of my strongest advocates or one of my strongest arguments, let's say, for my own job is, if we want our customers to succeed, we need to, empower our architects with the right knowledge, with the right tools and resources to get their job done so that the system is built in the right way. Because if it's a pretty house, it will be used. If it's a house that kind of on shaky ground, on shaky foundations, then it will reflect badly on the solution. It will reflect badly on Salesforce. So it's in everyone's best interest to make sure that we support architects as good as we can. So that's my role in not that small of a nutshell, big nutshell.
Yeah, well, a big nutshell with lots of bridges, and I love the I love the metaphors. Right, keep them coming because yeah, I live for those. They're great. So thinking about this now as we kind of dive into the further questions, and for the further questions, let's just kind of approach the architect role as a whole, if we may. And I think you're one of the right people to talk to about that, because I know all of the evangelizing you've been doing in the community for many years before it was your job. So I'm sure you have views on that. If you were to kind of generalize the architect role, how does that interact with other roles?
Constantly, going back to that bridge, if there's no people that you're interacting with, there's no bridge to be made.
Hmm.
So, it's very much ingrained in the kind of role that an architect is, that you're constantly interacting. I already mentioned a few of the people that you would be in, or the types of people that you would be interacting with business and technology stakeholders, but a lot of what you do as an architect is also talking to more operational or governance roles, like project manager or maybe your compliance team. So a lot of what we do is actually interacting with those other roles, because our goal is to make sure that there's a shared understanding, a common ground between all the actors at play, so that we can all work together to get to that common goal and make sure that we do it in the right way. So a lot of interaction. If you don't like to interact with people, this might not be the thing for you.
Yeah. Well, I like that. And it's kind of working together towards a shared vision, right? You're
Exactly.
all on this road together, and the journey is getting to the place where you need to get to, but you're all on the same page that the specific place is where you are all headed. One of you isn't headed off in a different direction. Do you think that's applicable here and true?
Oh, yes, for sure. I mean, it's really important that we know, why we're going there and how we're going to get there. Because it's only if you're aligning on those things that you can make sure that indeed nobody's veering off into some uncharted waters unnecessarily, you know, for sure. It's really about creating that shared direction of we're going there. This is what we want to do. And also, and I know this might not always be top of mind when people think about architects, is what does success look like? All those things about KPI and other businessy terms, as an architect, you care about those as well, because they influence how you're going to get there and how you will notice that you're actually there. If you know what success looks like, you know when you're achieving it. So, yeah, again, you need to understand a lot of the different worlds, different side of that bridge.
Okay, great. And thinking about this now, and maybe this is a question that works better for other roles, right? Because I certainly think of this question and I think of my own personal answer like straight away. But do you typically see people in the architect role full time, or do you think they play other roles, or maybe do you think the role is made up of lots of other roles anyway? What do you think about that?
So, starting with, I see a ton of full-time architects.
Hmm.
I would love to see more. I would
Yeah.
always love to see more architects. I think they play such a vital role in the health of systems and solutions. So there should always be more architects, if you ask me. Nevertheless, they do also exist in these hybrid roles, especially when you look at, smaller organizations. You will find that you have analysts, you have admins, you have developers who are actually also taking on some architect responsibilities. It's how I grew into becoming an architect, and I feel it's a very common path to becoming an architect, because
Yeah.
there's very few people that actually, to be honest, I haven't really seen many people who just start their career, start their professional journey as an architect, because you have to have some skill set, some knowledge to fall back on. And that's something that usually it starts from one side of the bridge, and then you kind of like grow your understanding towards the other side as well. So, yes, there's a lot of hybrid roles. There's a lot of people that are already architecting without having the architect title for
Yeah. Okay. And maybe break it down for our audience a little bit. Like, what type of architect roles do you often see within the Salesforce ecosystem? And I know I'm kind of trying to catch you off here with an additional question, but I think it's useful to know like the broad range of different types of architects, right?
Definitely. And, I will start with calling out some, but know
Mhm.
that there will likely be ones that I miss. Just because there might be different, let's say, definitions depending on where you go and which kind of customer or partner landscape that you're trying to navigate. So there's also, and I would love to just call it out, of course, one of my favorite architects of all time, Gemma Blizzard. She actually wrote an article about the different kind of architects that there are. So I highly recommend. But just to answer your question, you might have solution architects like yourself, what I was too, where it's very, very close to um, the business analyst understanding those processes, yet still being able to give a technical translation of those back towards the team. And they're really understanding, of course, what is possible out of the box, etc., to again bring that knowledge back into the conversation with business to make sure that maybe where possible the process can be adapted in favor of those out of the box features. So that's something, this is the only one I'm going to explain at such length because we're both,
Yeah.
this is our origin story almost.
Yeah.
Then of course you have others where I think it's a bit more straightforward. They have specializations like maybe it's about integration, maybe it's about data. So these are very specific domains where still you have a lot of conversation between business and technology stakeholders. And then one role that I think is really very important for people to be aware of is the role of enterprise architect, because I think the bigger Salesforce gets as a solution, and also definitely the more you see different technologies, different products coming together, especially in the AI landscape, you have to have those enterprise architects who really can bring those pieces of the puzzle together and are not necessarily experts in one or another technology, but understand overall the capabilities, let's say, well enough to see how those pieces would fit together.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. Well, I love that. And I love the fact that Gemma came up during our conversation as well, because actually I have benefited from her content too. Like her content on OAuth flows really helped me because she spoke about it in British terms that I understood. And I was like, okay, I understand what the device flow is now because you've said BBC iPlayer and I know what BBC iPlayer is. And now it's just stuck. And in fact, maybe doom scroll on Instagram too much, right? I was doom scrolling the other day and I saw this clip, which I shared with a group of friends in like a group chat. And it was OAuth explained by cats. And they just said, Gemma would love this.
Oh, I yes,
Yeah.
amazing. Yes.
There's this whole series on Instagram actually of everything explained by cats, like technology terms. So maybe check that out if you have
Oh,
to.
yeah, definitely send me the link. I would love to see that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's try not to veer too much off of script, which is my fault. But anyway, if you were listening to this, right, as somebody who was interested in pursuing an architect type path, what tips, advice would you give to that person looking to start out?
Well, so going back to, that hybrid role,
Hmm.
um, and how architects usually start out, it can be a very lonely experience. Again, if you're this hybrid role in a small organization, you might not have an architect with you who can guide you, help you find your way. And even if you are in a larger organization, they might not have the time or space to do so. The skills that you need as an architect are really, really difficult to learn and acquire on your own. There's a lot of, as I mentioned, that interaction, that communication, that collaboration. So, what I always say, but especially because, of course, I mentor quite a bit of people and I guide a lot of people on the CTA path, is it really takes a village to grow architects. You need that support, you need those different perspectives. So my advice is always, find your village because this is not something you can do on your own. You need to practice, you need to get feedback, learn to work with feedback, incorporate that. So, and that's where I really loved when they introduced the architect community groups. So immediately jumped on that, applied to become a group leader when it came out. And I think there's still such a valuable place. But if, there's no architect group near you, you can definitely go to admin or developer ones or maybe virtual groups. So I think that would be a very good starting point for people to, yeah, grow that village to help them hone their skills.
Okay, awesome. Well, I love that about the architect groups. And I think from my own experience, like that's a great way of bringing people together. I, as well as some other folks, all applied to run an architect group in London separately, right? And Salesforce put us together. And now I'm running an architect group with other architects that I hadn't met with before or worked with before. And we have such varying backgrounds and strengths that it's really helpful to just kind of learn from each other, even just running the group. Like for me as a leader, it's super valuable. So I'm assuming you were involved in the group in Belgium.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. I started the architect group in Brussels. Well, there's only one, because
Yeah.
Belgium is about this big. So
Yeah. But yeah, the one thing I'm learning about Belgium, it seems to have more bridges than I remember from my last trip.
I mean, you do have Bruges there, so
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we can make it work. All right. Awesome. So thinking about this now as your own journey to becoming and being an architect, if you were to start that journey again, right, is there anything you would do differently or change?
for sure. I mean, there's always, when you look back, things that you would like to change. For me, definitely the thing that I didn't fully value and understand when I was first on my journey to becoming an architect was really, the power again of stepping outside my comfort zone and connecting with other people and getting feedback and the value of feedback. I was always so used to studying for exams alone, really just me and Trailhead and a whole bunch of documents. But then I couldn't do that as, training to become an architect. You need to have that feedback. And the first few times you get it, it's a bit of a acquired taste, let's say, because
Mhm.
it is very, you're putting yourself in a vulnerable situation to have people basically criticize you, but you have to understand it's not criticizing in malice or anything like that. It's really about finding those points that you can improve on, and helping you actually get better, finding those blind spots that you would never catch on your own. And that is something that I would have hoped to have done a bit sooner if I were to go back. So definitely, yeah,
Okay.
valuable.
Yeah, I love that. And like from my own point of view, I've been on a little bit of a journey with feedback as well, from it leaving a sour taste in my mouth, kind of what you described, to now where, and maybe this is just siding with Salesforce a little bit. And sorry, but I'm gonna do this. You know, it happens. Feedback is a gift, and actually, they put that in the Dreamforce slides at the top. And I actually agree with that wholeheartedly. Ultimately, somebody is giving you an opportunity to improve yourself. They are not attacking you. They are not criticizing. They are trying to help you. And as soon as you realize that, this sour taste disappears. So, have you found that yourself?
Definitely. I mean, I think just to maybe again, because I love those analogies and
Yeah.
so when you're tired, you come, especially like I have this nephew. He's amazing, but when he gets tired, he gets super stubborn. And then anything you say is like no, right? So that used to be his favorite word. It's getting better, but and I feel like, this feeling of no, like the initial defensiveness, that kind of gut reflex of no, that is the first reaction that I used to have to feedback, not because I felt that I was above feedback or anything like that, but just because, if it's so vulnerable, it's something that, it's again acquired skill. And the first few times you get that feedback, you go into defensive mode because it feels like people might be attacking you, while it's definitely not. So, couldn't agree more. Once you start to understand and see it as a gift, then you will also start to really get the value. And it's not that you need to change who you are. That's never the point. It's about understanding who you are a bit better, because you will see blind spots that you will never catch on your own because you miss those perspectives, you miss that outside view. So that's, yeah, I love feedback.
Yeah. Yeah, go
We
ahead.
want to get feedback, by the way. So there's constant surveys on our website. We're running new surveys every so often because we take what we learned from the previous one and we incorporate it in the questions that are going to appear in the new survey. So again, not just me personally, but our team as well. We live on feedback. So please, please give us feedback.
Okay, well, that's great. I can certainly relate to the knee-jerk no reaction straight away. I've done many personality tests, and defender is a very strong attribute of mine, rightly or wrongly. It's both a strength and a weakness. This is what I'm learning too, right? So yeah, I can certainly relate to that. And you say your team's running surveys and things like that. Is there a particular website that people can go to find out the latest surveys and offerings?
So we will definitely communicate them via our LinkedIn channel and our other social channels as well, of course. So I think it's always best to keep an eye on those, because also not only the surveys, but also maybe new articles, blog posts that are coming out will be appearing there as well. And actually, funnily enough, this week there was also my intro video. So you might also see some interesting videos appearing there as well.
Uh,
So yeah, I think that's the best way to keep apprised of what we're doing.
okay. All right. Great. So thinking about this now and kind of zooming out again to the role of architect in general, what skills or attributes would you use to describe that person performing that role? Are there any words that kind of come to mind straight away?
Definitely. This is one I will try to keep it short, but it's one that I get very passionate about.
Passionate. Yeah.
Yes. So let's start with the bridge. I already talked a bit about why it's important to be able to communicate, to collaborate, how to handle feedback. So definitely, I think that's very important to keep those power skills in mind. On the other hand, of course, you need to have those technical skills to understand, you know, what you're working with. It's very difficult to complete a puzzle if you don't understand the puzzle pieces. But unlike my puzzle analogy, because yes, of course, I went there again, you are allowed to have a lot more creativity and out of the box and critical thinking than you would with a normal puzzle where everything is, you know exactly how it's going to end up. You are, as an architect, you have the liberty to actually challenge things, and you should be challenging things. And I feel that is often one of the maybe tipping points in people's journeys towards becoming an architect, is when they start challenging things, when they start asking those questions. And
Hmm.
again, this is also something that could be seen as being contrary or being maybe defensive or maybe offensive even, but it's all about making sure you fully understand the actual root or reason that something needs to be done, or that something is or is not possible. And you need that understanding as an architect to make the right decision. And that is also in understanding those things, again, about the mindset that an architect needs to have. Having that helicopter view, knowing when to go deep, when surface level or high level is good enough, and when to ask who for more information, to make sure that when you step away from it, it does look like one cohesive building, and it's not, all kinds of very random things put together that
Different windows. Yeah.
is exactly.
All right. Well, do you know the one thing that really resonated with me, what you said there? Two words: good enough.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That is a challenge for some people. Do you agree?
Yes, it is. And one of the things that I always feel is really important is again, that helicopter view in deciding when is good enough, and what is your role, because a challenge, let's say, that as an architect, because you're that bridge person you have, because you're taking that helicopter view, you might sometimes, take too much on your plate that should not be there. You cannot be the expert of everything. That
Huh?
is just impossible. So you
Yeah.
will need to understand when enough is enough for you, and when you need to ask somebody else to help you understand other things. And this can be technical or this can be business. You won't be able to understand a process into its nitty gritty, and you don't have to.
Yeah. And at least for me, and I'm curious what you think about this, it's also about letting that inner perfectionist go, right? It's free, it's gone. Do you feel the same or do you have a slightly different take on it?
No, because it's a balance. It's always a balance. And it's even more a balance because of the technology that we're operating with. If you look at Salesforce, you see there's tons of out of the box solutions. So, as from a purely technical excellence point of view, you're like, let's use those. Let's
Hmm.
make sure that we use those to the best of our abilities. And then we know it's going to be good for our return on investment, total cost of ownership, all those nice KPIs that, we think of as technical excellence. So that is one, side to go into this is best practice and this is how it should be, kind of, yeah, almost too rigid composure or too rigid attitude. But you need to reflect on then the business part of it. Will this actually work for them? Is this going to make their lives more difficult? Because even though these solutions are built on industry knowledge or ideal processes and how they should work, there are definitely reasons within a company that they might work in a different way because of regulations, industry, or organization standards. That is perfectly valid as a reason why maybe it should not be exactly this out of the box solution. And the other way around as well, maybe business would love something that is very much tailored to what they do. But from a technical excellence point of view, you might say that's not going to be sustainable because we know that your process is going to change every quarter. So if we go into that level of detail in our implementation of your process, it's going to be a very heavy handed change, very costly change. So it's always going to be about that balance and about being pragmatic. So definitely, I think, nail on the head there. You need to be pragmatic. You need to find when is enough, when is the balance good enough, and go for those wins.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Well, I love that because I'm still on this journey a little bit myself. So, yeah, there's definitely lots of food for thought there. So, thinking about this now, what's one thing you'd like to change or make more people aware about in the Salesforce context?
Well, I think what is really important to know is that even though you have to have some technical skills, as we talked about already, your role is not inherently or purely technical. I already hammered on quite a bit on those, communication and those power skills. But, just to give you two very clear cut examples of why these are not going to be enough that I like to gravitate towards is one, let's say you've designed this beautiful technical masterpiece. It is absolutely beauty. It's taking all the best practices in mind. It's even leveraging the newest technologies that you just read in the release notes. It's amazing. However, it really does not take into account the actual business process or the business needs. It's more of a, let's say, solution looking for a problem rather than
Okay.
the way around.
Yeah.
Not going to get built. And even if it's getting built, if for some reason you manage to push it through, it's not going to get used. So it's not going to be seen as successful. Again, you need to understand both sides. It's not just a technical problem you're trying to solve here. And then going back to those communication skills, let's say the technical masterpiece that you have written out actually does address the business issue perfectly. It's matching it to a T, but you cannot communicate the value to business or the specifications to your technical stakeholders. is it going to actually get built? Or even worse, is it going to get built the way that you have envisioned it if you're not able to communicate it?
Mm,
It's not. So again, a lot about being an architect is one, the balance, and two, the communication, making sure that one, you understand people and they understand you.
yeah. Okay. Well, I think that's a really great food for thought, a way to kind of almost bring us to a close. But before we do wrap up for today, what's a way for people to connect with you? And are there any particular resources or websites that you think are very helpful to Salesforce architects?
Well, they can always connect to me on LinkedIn. I'm very active there, so that should be easy enough. Plus, I also frequently go out into the community to events, so always happy to talk to people there. And then I think you'll know when you're asking about a very good website that I've heard
Yeah.
about. Uh, it's gonna be the architect's website, so it's architect.salesforce.com. And of course, the Salesforce Architects page on LinkedIn, where if you follow them, you will see very all our updates, everything that's happening. It's a very very good channel, let's say, to follow.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. Well, that's great. And I'll be sure to pop those links in the comment for anybody that's catching up on demand. And ultimately, yeah, it was great to have this chat today. And hopefully, we're gonna inspire some more architects. So yeah, go architects.
Go architects, go Ruth.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.